quickly and you need to hear something, please just let me know and I can go over it. Um, as Professor Wren said, my name is Erica. I actually walked for graduation a couple years ago and ended up having some things come up, so I did not finish, and I am back finishing my senior project and ready and excited to be here, very excited. So I focused on the Los Angeles housing crisis. It is rising all over the world, but specifically in California and specifically in the Southern California region. Los Angeles is going through limited houses that are available. Housing is going up like crazy, just like everything else is, gas prices, inflation, and things like that. But there were some things that urban design and some urban studies scholars had towards a solution of this housing crisis. So basically, like I stated, affordability is hard to come across these days for housing in a sense. I would say it is caused definitely by the rapid rising of housing costs, especially the last couple decades. In California specifically, we have been in a housing crisis since 1970. So as you can see, it is 2021 and things, as inflation goes up, everything else does as well. So it's been definitely a reoccurring problem. These housing costs are very hard for families, especially low income families, to keep up with homes and rising costs as well. In 2018, the homelessness population in California was actually the third highest in the nation, as well as in 2017, the year before, the median price of a home in California was 2.5 more than the United States as a whole. Like it was a lot more expensive in California than the whole entire world, which is a little scary if you think about it. But that led to the average price of a home to be about $600,000 in Los Angeles, and that was in 2017. So things have still continued to rise, as well as a $600 home in a certain area could be very small and very minimal compared to in a lower income area. It might be a little bigger, but still things do vary. When you do compare the rental rate from Los Angeles to the United States as a whole, you can definitely see that it is a lot higher. The average rental rate in LA is going to be $2,284, while in the United States, it is about $1,357. And that is for like an average household of two. Basically, the main goal of this whole project and this whole study is to come across the affordability, and an affordable dwelling is one of those things that can help. It's defined as a household that can obtain that a household can obtain for 30% of less of its income. So basically, if a household is considered low income, then theirs would be considered considerably lower, or So I actually had done a calculation in my paper as well. And that was that if I took 24% of Los Angeles median household income in 2019 and I divided that by the 12 months, affordable rent should be around $1,455 for a household. And that seems very low. Like even myself, I have a one bedroom and I pay about $1,600 or more. So it is hard to come across, but hopefully it is out there. But compared to the average rental rate, which is about $2,200 or more. Another thing that these families come across that plays into this role is if they do live in a more affordable area, it's harder for them to get to work, or that it's a farther commute to work. So they have travel expenses as well. So if they are to find somewhere affordable, they do have other costs that come into play as well. As you can see on my screen, I do have a little picture of the homeless community and everything, and the people list homes. Basically, no one can afford them. So it's like there is definitely a misconstruct between the two. I have a couple other photos here in Los Angeles County. So the statistic or the picture on the left, it basically goes over how LA County needs about 551,807 more affordable rental homes to keep up with the people that are looking for homes or the renters that need homes as well. And they did a study in 2017 on the right hand side that basically, yeah, 21,700 homeless households needed stable housing. So there definitely is a deficit between the homes and the people looking for homes and the affordability of all of that together. So that's where I personally think urban study comes into play. So urban study is basically about making the connections between the places and the people. You have a lot of society in the ways that the roads are worked, the way buildings are placed, rivers, parks, all of that plays into urban studies. It's kind of connecting the basically, yes, the people and the places. And it brings a certain area to life with that human connection. And it works directly with urban design. Urban design is the process of creating all of these places that the urban studies looks over. Urban design is designing and shaping like the physical features of the cities and the towns and the planning of the different parks and places, of course. It combines the larger areas with the smaller areas and how those work in almost this like beautiful musical between people and places. And like I said earlier, it does go over like landscape, civil engineering, and all of those in there. So a couple, which also brings me back to the affordability of it. With urban design, we can introduce a more affordable option into the cities, towns, whichever we're looking for. So one of my options or solutions that I had come across while doing all my research was basically the housing density. Yes, density and bridal housing. So the housing density, if we are able to create a more compact or dense livable areas or things like that that are more affordable, it is definitely easier for us to get low income households into houses that they can afford, as well as create those opportunities to get to work easier or in a place that is easier for them to be with these more dense areas as well. There are definitely neighborhoods and residential areas that they will only have single family homes. And if there were to be single family homes with an ADU, like I had mentioned earlier, an accessory dwelling unit, or like basically like a mother-in-law unit, something that is on the same property, if we have those in those areas or those residences, it can definitely help by increasing the density, giving more people a place to live, even if it is someone you would like to rent out to, like a actual family member, friends. It still creates a space for others. There is, however, evidence that basically if there are more units in an affordable area, it will increase the rate of rent as well. So there's a very thin line between the inflation that happens as well. Where was I? Pardon me. They have titled land, so there is definitely other places that people can grow on or build other things as far as apartment units or low density housing as well. It all comes into play with the work because a lot of low income houses or areas are outside of the city, and a lot of people have work inside Los Angeles, but the neighboring cities are more affordable, yet harder to get to if you choose one or the other. And that goes for like the urbanized land, the titled land, like I stated, densifying and having that secondary unit in there as well. So zoning policy and regulations also has a lot to do with these different things. working directly with a architect myself now, a lot of these zoning and policy and regulations are very strict in certain areas. There are a lot of people that do want to add on an accessory dwelling unit or a mother-in-law unit, or even add on to their own house, like 2 stories, to have that accessory dwelling unit to be able to rent these out to other people. And the laws are very strict. A lot of the zoning policies are strict on how and where you can build. If there's certain fees that people have to pay. So I know that strays a lot of people away from creating those, as well as when starting off with just a lot and wanting to create those as well. There are a lot of rules, and some people don't want to move forward with it. A lot of people want to just step back and say, okay, we'll just go with the basics. And then that still creates that deficit for people. A lot of the scholars that I went over were in favor of creating these other units, as well as like I said, putting more people into more spaces, and having the different functionalities of the different, what is the word I'm looking for? Residences and communities of all types, not just one. Perfect. Oh, no, well, let me change. There we go. The housing equality. So housing expenses, there is a gap between the wage and the cost. The inequalities that a lot of people see are definitely becoming more of racial and social inequalities. There are neighborhoods that like to stay in a certain race. And even in the day that is 2021, I believe that causes a lot of issues when trying to find a home, or trying to find a place for your family and where you would like to live. It creates a lot of gap between eviction as well as being able to rent in certain areas. Perfect. And then, yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has helped me throughout this. Professor Wren has been there, as well as Professor Colin Zogrel has been very patient with me. I have learned a lot of this, and I continue to grow as well. And if you have any questions, please let me know.